The next morning at breakfast, Katsumi announced his verdict. "We proceed with courtship," he said. "No formal announcements yet. The press will sniff. We will feed them only what we must." He turned to Hana. "And you will pause all contact with Tsubame monthly for a respectable period?" "No," Hana said. It was the first time in her life she had told her father that word and let it stay in the room. "I will keep writing. I will attend school. I will be polite to the arimas, but I will not pause my voice." Reina's spoon rang against her bowl. "Hana." "Mother," Hana said, looking at her, "would you have wanted to marry your dress?" Reina's mouth opened, then closed. Chiyoko's pearls clicked softly as she lifted her chin. "Let the girl speak," she said. Katsumi's jaw tightened. "You will embarrass us." "I will honor us in a way that doesn't look like honor yet," Hana replied. "Let me be the experiment you didn't run." No one breathed for 3 seconds. Then Katsumi rose. "You will accompany me to the office today," he said. "You will sit in meetings. You will see the weight I carry." "I will," Hana said. "And then you will come with me to the editorial meeting at Tsubame on Thursday. You will see the weight I choose." They looked at each other as if relearning reading. At the Tsubame office, 3 rooms above a stationery shop that sold handmade notebooks and the kind of pens that remembered your hand, Hana met her editor in a cardigan that had pilled in all the right places. "Aki-san," the editor said, bowing. "And my father," Hana said. "He wants to see the factory that makes the things you cannot weigh." Katsumi sat stiffly on a low sofa while the editor discussed deadlines, arcs, the way the second chapter needed to break a heart gently. He touched the stack of manuscripts with the same caution he applied to contracts that might explode. "People will read this?" he asked, as if reading were an accusation. "People will live inside it," the editor said, "if we do our job." "We?" Katsumi repeated. "Writers, editors, and anyone who feeds them or lets them sleep," the editor said, unashamedly looking at Hana's father as if he were an apprentice guardian of a fire. On the way back to the car, Katsumi said nothing. In the elevator, his reflection hovered above his shoulders like a slightly more tired ghost. Finally, in the parking garage, he said, "Your grandmother once painted a scroll behind my grandfather's back. He sold it accidentally for less than the price of the frame. She laughed for an hour and then didn't paint for a year." He swallowed. "She always told me I inherited her fear of my father." "You inherited her eyes too," Hana said. "They see what hurts and what heals." He looked at her, some puzzle quietly solving. "I will not forbid you," he said, "but I will not announce your pen name to the world. When you are ready to claim it, you will." "I am not hiding because of shame," Hana said. "I know," he answered. "We cover seedlings not because we doubt the tree, because wind exists." Summer trembled into the city with cicadas and exam results. Hana's serialization continued. Letters arrived at Tsubame addressed to Hoshino Aki, a middle schooler who said she stopped skipping lunch to buy pens because Aki's characters taught her that hunger hides in places that cannot be fed. A grandfather who kept his dead wife's recipes and cried when Hana wrote a scene where salt was a kind of memory. Hana read every letter twice. She showed May the ones that asked for more water in the bowl of the world. Kento texted her carefully as one might handle a glass kite. He sent a photograph of a book he had bought because he wanted to understand why a sentence could bruise. She sent a photograph of her grandmother's hands folding gyoza. They met twice in bookstores and pretended to be strangers until they reached the essay shelves, where they were simply readers. Once, in a convenience store at midnight, they drank canned coffee and laughed about nothing because nothing felt permitted and permission felt like oxygen. Everything was almost survivable until Chiyoko's breath shortened and words took longer to cross the room. In late September, Hana found her grandmother in the garden, staring at a camellia as if asking it for a favor. "Oba-sama," Hana whispered. "Bring me the scroll," Chiyoko said, "the one in the bottom drawer, and ink that forgives old hands." Hana fetched the old tools. Chiyoko sat up at the low table with ceremony that felt like a prayer. "Hold the paper," she told Hana. "Tight. It must not wander." "What will you write?" Hana asked. "The sentence you have been trying to say since you were 9, Chiyoko said, dipping the brush. "What sentence is that?" Chiyoko smiled. "The one that knocks." Hana held the paper. Chiyoko's brush traveled. When it lifted, the characters shone before the ink sank. Ren haming wo jigo yori, monemoti ayo ikio, leave a story, not a name. Hana's throat closed, then opened. She pressed her forehead to her grandmother's shoulder. I was afraid you would leave before giving me permission. Chiyoko patted her cheek. Permission is a door you must build from the inside. A week later, Chiyoko's breathing stopped. The house discovered how much silence and absence can fit. The funeral passed in a sequence of correct gestures. Hana did them all, and then sat in her room and read her grandmother's sentence until the strokes felt like family. On the day the last chapter of her summer arc went to print, she brought the scroll to Tsubame. The editor looked, bowed, and hung it behind her desk. Aki-san, she said, we want to feature a short essay by you next month. On names and stories. Will you write it? You may sign it however you choose. Hana went home and wrote the essay at her grandmother's desk. She wrote about calligraphy as a choreography of the heart, about omiyai dinners and gardens that teach you where to stand, about the difference between a vase and a vessel, about fireworks and dogs, about the way one old woman's breath measured a house. When she finished, she signed it. Hoshino Aki, Hana Sakamoto. She printed it. She brought it to her father. He read it standing. He turned one page and then another as if the paper might argue. When he finished, he looked at her. The metronome in the house stopped and listened to him think. He placed the essay carefully on the table. Announce it, he said. At the same time, the Arimas requested a dinner to discuss timeline. Reina ironed a blouse and smiled with her sorrow hidden under her lipstick. We have delayed enough, she said. At the restaurant overlooking the Sumida, Kento looked at Hana and then at his parents. Before timelines, he said, I have news. He folded his hands. I am not ready to lead Arima Holdings. I have asked for a 2-year apprenticeship in Osaka, with a non-profit that rehabs public housing. I want to learn buildings as places where people breathe, not portfolios that make numbers happy. Mr. Arima's face twitched. Nonsense. It is not nonsense, Kento said, steadier than Hana had expected. It is preparation. Mrs. Arima looked at Reina and Katsumi as if to ask whether they had sanctioned this treason. Reina looked at Hana. Hana kept her eyes on her water glass because great floods begin when people forget to swallow. Katsumi cleared his throat. Our families have cultivated reputations for sensible choices, he said. Sensible can be a slower word for cowardice. I am trying to learn new pronunciations. Mr. Arima laughed once, cruel as a ticking. We are not reinventing dynasties because of children's hobbies. Hobbies? Kento repeated, not angrily. Let us discuss hobbies. Is it a hobby to prevent mold in a bathroom that makes a child cough? Is it a hobby to ask a mother whether the elevator shakes when it rains? The men stared at each other, across a table arranged to prevent intimacy. Hana looked at Kento and thought of a sentence she'd written months ago about roofs that understand the patience of sleeping people. Katsumi set down his chopsticks. Hana has an essay in next month's Tsubame, he said into the stalls of conversation. It will bear both her names. We are not hiding our house from itself. He looked at the Arimas. We support our children's experiments. I will not decide tonight about engagements. Let the papers chase someone else. The meal continued because meals always do. The river moved as if it alone had understood everything. When the essay appeared, the internet behaved like weather. Some comments praised courage, others tisked about arrogance, a few spit. At school, girls whispered her name as if trying a new flavor of gum. May hugged her and cried in the vending machine corridor. Teachers who had never taught her now nodded in hallways like they'd always liked her. And teachers who had scolded her for daydreaming asked her to sign their magazines as if signatures could retroactively pass exams. Hana's inbox filled with letters from girls who had read by flashlight, and women who had written on rice bags, and men who had married names and found them heavy. One evening, Kento came to the neighborhood near the Tsubame office with 2 coffees and a look like he had slept on truth. I told my father I was going anyway, he said. He told me to change my name. He laughed without humor, so I told him I'd live my story. You can use mine, Hana said. Names are cheaper when shared. He shook his head. I like mine. I just want to pronounce it correctly. He handed her the coffee. You taught me that. They sat on the curb like ordinary people with buses at their backs. Do you think we will marry one day? He asked, not as a contract, but as a child who wants to know whether summer will come after spring. I think if we do, it will be because we found a sentence we both can live inside, she said. And if we don't, we will still have the part where we were each other's bridges, she said. Autumn arrived like it had been practicing. Hana's serialization entered its winter arc. She wrote about grief that fills rooms like fog and about joy that steals shoes to make you chase it. She visited schools and pretended not to be nervous until the mic was in her hand, and then she forgot to be anyone but the person who had written. At the final school visit of the year, a girl in the front row stood and asked, "How do you know if you are being brave or just foolish?" Hana thought of her grandmother's brush and her father in a small office above a pen shop, of Kento in a non-profit with paint on his jacket, of her mother pressing a hand to her own stomach after reading the essay and whispering, alone, "Good." She said, "Foolish is when you harm others to fit yourself. Brave is when you refuse to harm yourself to fit others." The girl sat, breathing as if a belt had been loosened. On New Year's Day, Hana stood with her family at the shrine. She tied her omikuji to a branch and offered a laugh to the wind when it tugged at her hair like a younger cousin. "For Oba-sama," she whispered, "for all the women who burned rice bag practice sheets." When she turned, she found Reina watching her with a face that looked like a lesson learned too late and still in time. "Your grandmother would have been noisy with pride," Reina said. "She always was noisy," Hana smiled. They walked home through a city that smelled like soup. Katsumi between them carried a bag of mochi. He looked smaller and more right-sized than he had in any boardroom. "I worry," he said simply. "I know," Hana answered. "So do I." "I am proud," he added. "I know," she whispered. "So am I." That night, the wind tapped the window as if asking to be let in. Hana opened it and let the room fill with a cold that made honesty necessary. She took out her notebook and wrote the sentence that had started all this. The one that had knocked for years until she let it move in. She wrote it in her grandmother's brushstroke letters, and then in her own awkward hand. "I will not marry a name. I will marry a story." She closed the notebook and looked out at the city where so many windows were lit with people trying to build doors from the inside. Somewhere Kento was learning the names of 10 types of mold. Somewhere a girl was hiding a magazine under a pillow. Somewhere a mother was shredding lettuce and deciding to say yes when her daughter asked, "Can I go to the reading?" Hana turned off the light and lay down. She breathed the way her grandmother had taught her to breathe when fear visited. Counting in, counting out, making space. The house practiced symmetry around her, but inside her chest, the starfield welcomed 1,000 uneven, honest lights. The sentence that had once been a sparrow became a sky. And if this story has a moral, and it does, because the wind insists, it is this. Titles can be inherited, but a voice must be chosen. And you are not a vessel for your family's fear. You are the author of your own life.